Hello, everybody. I am John Levesque, Senior PM on the Microsoft Flow team, and let me just say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for joining us from wherever you are in the world. It's my great pleasure to introduce you and welcome you today to the very first ever all online free Microsoft Flow conference. We have so many people watching today. It is so exciting. And so without further ado, we must jump into our sessions. Lucky for us all, Microsoft Flow MVP Melissa Hubbard is doing our Meet Microsoft Flow session first this morning. I'm going to go ahead and let her do the rest of the introduction. Let's go see what she has to say.
Hello, Flow friends. Welcome to the very first session of MVP Day's Microsoft Flow Conference. The session is called Meet Microsoft Flow. My name is Melissa Hubbard. I am super excited and honored to be kicking off this amazing conference as somebody who's been using Flow and speaking about it since it basically became available. It's been awesome to watch the product grow and now to see this huge community that has grown around the product. So one thing I want you to keep in mind, we would like you to be engaged in this conference by using the hashtag MSFlowConference on Twitter. So if you have any questions, comments, or you want to reach us, use that hashtag throughout the conference and make sure you stay tuned all day because there's some amazing speakers that are going to follow this. A little bit about myself. Again, my name is Melissa Hubbard. I'm a project manager with Witham Digital. We are based out of the DC area. We have an office in Bethesda. I'm at MellyHub is my Twitter handle. I have a blog at mellyhub.com where I mostly blog about Flow and Microsoft Teams. So I'm an Office 365 consultant. I came from a SharePoint background, moved into Office 365 consulting. I have a project management background in the PMP. And I'm recently an author of an end user guide for mastering Microsoft Teams with a co-author named Matthew Bailey. User adoption, governance, training around Office 365 are topics that I'm especially passionate about. I've always been very interested in business process automation and all that it can do to help people get their jobs done smarter, faster, more efficiently, etc. I'm also a Flow MVP, one of the first 5 in the world, and we're growing, and I'm so happy about that. I want to give a shout out to our DC Flow user group. Woo! Hey guys! Our next meeting is going to be January 23rd. So you may have been noticing that Flow and Power Apps user groups have been sprouting up across the globe. So you definitely want to get connected with your community as you're learning Flow. So what are we going to cover today? We're going to meet Flow. We're going to talk about what Microsoft Flow is, what it does, and where it fits in. We're going to talk about the components of a flow, templates, approvals, and how to get started. My main goal from this session is that if you have not built your first flow yet, you will have what you need to be able to go and build your first flow. And better yet, tweet about it or email me about it and share the goodness. All right, so let's get into it. So work less, do more is the motto for Microsoft Flow. It helps people and teams work smarter by automating business processes across their apps and data. So that's very important. It's not just SharePoint, it's not just Dynamics, it's not just built for one product. You can really cross your data throughout many different services. It's a cloud-based business process automation service. It's meant for the power user, for the citizen integrator. It provides user-friendly solutions to automate your personal and organizational business processes. This was a change for me to get used to coming from a person who did a lot of SharePoint designer workflows. I was always creating workflows that were meant for an enterprise or meant for an organization. With Flow, you can do that, but you can also create flows that you can use for your personal use, like syncing your calendars or sending emails in a series of approvals that you do in your day-to-day job. I want to repeat again that this connects with many different services. It connects with your Office 365 apps, Dynamics 365, and over 195 software as a service, cloud services, file providers, databases, web APIs, productivity apps, and more. So yes, the rumor is true, if you want to call it that. SharePoint Designer will eventually be replaced by Microsoft Flow. So the newest version of SharePoint that has just been released on premises is 2019, and your designer workflows will still be working in that version. However, Flow is becoming deeper and deeper integrated into SharePoint, and many of the things that you could do with Designer, you can do with Flow. So Flow is a streamlined version of Azure Logic Apps, if you're familiar with that product, but it's meant for the business user, citizen integrator, whereas Azure Logic Apps is more of a developer tool. So you can create flows from scratch based on your needs and your business processes, but we also have templates that can get you started. And we're going to go into those a little more. A really cool thing about Flow is that there's a great mobile app that you can use to track, manage, and create flows. Many of the very first flows I created carpooling on my cell phone. And to go along with the mobile app are buttons, which is a really cool personal business process automation piece of functionality with Flow, where you can create a button to do an action when you press it, and you can even add inputs once you press that button. And I won't go into them too much because I believe there's a whole session on buttons later in the day. And so Flow is subscription based. There is a free version. There's a version that comes with Office 365, so you should see it in your waffle of Office 365 as one of the apps you can use. And then there are also multiple packages. And you can manage your flows in a central administration center. That administration center has grown and grown in functionality. It's very robust at this point on what you can do to manage your flows. And just another visual of what it does. So some of the main functionality: getting notifications, copying files, collecting data, automating approvals. These are all common business process automation scenarios that we can use Flow to make our lives simpler, work less, do more, right? Live the dream. And where does it fit in? So Flow is part of a powerful and adaptable business application platform that includes Power BI, Power Apps, Flow, as well as SharePoint, the Common Data Service, Office 365, and Dynamics 365. So these tools are for power users. They're really meant to empower the business users who know their business the best. They know their processes the best. It empowers them to be able to create their own solutions to make their work more efficient. All right, so what are the components of a flow? Connectors. So connectors are how you connect your services to Microsoft Flow. For some of the more technical people that are watching, it's a proxy or wrapper around an API that allows the underlying service to talk to Microsoft Flow. You can connect to on-premises systems with a data gateway. So if you're using SharePoint on-premises, you can use Microsoft Flow, and I know several organizations that have started using Flow. Using the data gateway. And also you can create, connect, and share custom APIs as well. So if the service that you want to use Flow with is not here, then there is a process to create custom APIs. All right, so Flow triggers. Triggers are what start your flow. It's an event that gets the flow going. They can be triggered from an event in any of the services that Flow connects with. So an example of that is a SharePoint item being added to a list. That could trigger your flow. But also it could be someone tweeting a tweet that has a certain hashtag, that could trigger your flow. Flows can also be manually triggered based on a user action. So example of that is buttons that I talked about earlier. Pressing that button would trigger your flow. Also from other apps, so Power Apps, SharePoint. SharePoint has a drop down where you can run a flow on an item manually, and that's really powerful. Another great thing is that you can run flows on a schedule. So your trigger is that schedule. It's very configurable. I think you can run it every minute, you can run it every day, you can set it to a certain amount of hours, and the flow will trigger and then perform based on that schedule. So flow actions. What do you want your flow to do? What are you trying to accomplish? So the job that the workflow performs. There are hundreds of actions that flows can perform because there's so many services that it can connect with. Some of the main words you will see: get, list, create, edit, post, update, send, text, translate. You'll start to see the same action words just with different services. Also, you can add multiple actions to your flow, and you can reorder them by dragging and dropping them where you want. So it's pretty nice. And conditions, you may not even need any conditions in your flow. You could just have a trigger that starts off a series of actions or just one action. But conditions allow for a workflow to perform only when something is true. So when one value is equal to another, for example. And when you get into conditions, you may need to start using what are called expressions. And there's going to be a session on expressions, later in the day. Okay, so templates. I really want to talk about templates because they're a great way to get started with flow and get ideas on how to use it. For people who are not familiar with business process automation, they're new to Office 365, they've never done flow, taking a look at templates is a just quick and easy way for you to get ideas on how to use it and what it can do. You can search for them based on the type or the service or some keyword on what you want your flow to do. And then you connect with the services necessary. So the other thing to keep in mind when you see all these flow templates and actions, you have to have that service to be able to use that. So MailChimp, for example, is a connector. If you don't have an actual account with MailChimp, you're not going to be able to use that service. Also, templates are nice because you can make modifications to them. So you can use it as a base and then make modifications if you'd like to. And then that's it. It's done and you can start using it. Approvals. Approvals are another thing I really like to talk about when we're just getting started with flow, especially talking to organizations. Approvals are such a huge part of a lot of businesses' day-to-day work. They create content or they make requests and they have someone who needs to approve it or a series of people who need to approve it. They might need to have sequential, parallel approvals, or everyone must approve from a group. The great thing about Flow is that there's an approval center where you can see in a unified place all of your approvals that you have received and you have sent, and then the history of that. And also you can approve directly from an email in your inbox. You can approve from the approval center in Flow, or you can approve from your mobile device. And so the screenshot here is an example of approving from your mobile device, and this is what you will see in the approval center in Flow down at the bottom. All right, so let's take a tour of Microsoft Flow. All right, so here is the Flow home site. So you'll see here, it starts right off with a way to search for a template. Here's where you can see where you have approvals pending that you need to take action on. Here are the featured template collections. So They've put together templates in verticals. So if you're doing software development, or if you're part of a sales team or marketing team, they've put them together in collections so that you can get a better idea of how you can benefit from flow. So here's how you get to your approval center on the left. So I'm going to go into the approval center and show you that. So here's 2 approvals that I've received that I need to take action on, and I can do that right from here. I could also email the requester or reassign this. I copy a link, and in history, I will see all of my approval histories, whether they're canceled, rejected, approved, and it keeps that list, and you can filter based on received or sent. All right, let's take a look at the templates. And I'm going to search for Twitter. I want to save tweets that include a specific hashtag to a SharePoint list. And I want to save all of the tweets from today's conference into a SharePoint list. So when I've selected this template, it shows me where it will connect to. So if I didn't have these connectors, it's going to prompt you to create these connectors, which will basically mean putting in your username and password. All right, so when a new tweet appears, so here's where I'm going to put in the hashtag. Now I'm going to select the SharePoint site and list that I want to create this in. And here, I want to also have the user that sent the tweet show up in my list. So this has opened up dynamic content where it's going to give me basically all of the outputs from this tweet. So I'm going to choose name of the user, and I'm going to save. And I'm going to leave the flow saved. And here on the screen, it just kind of gives you a nice quick overview of what you have going on with your flow. So I have these connections. These are the owners. So I could add another owner of this flow, which is really best practice if it's going to be used for an organization or enterprise. You want to have at least 2 owners of a flow, so if someone leaves your organization, the other person can take over when edits are needed and nothing breaks. So we just created a flow using a template in just, very few minutes. Another thing I want to show you, if you click here on more commands, I can export this flow into a .zip file and save it. And I could reuse this in a different tenant or send it to a different organization if they wanted to use the same thing. It's really not usually necessary for something as simple as a template, but as your flows get more and more complex, you might want to package them up and save them, because versioning is not available in Microsoft Flow at this point. All right, so let's test this flow. So here I am in Twitter. I'm in my test Twitter handle, and I'm going to use the hashtag that will trigger our flow. I'm going to send that tweet out. And also, I will give you a warning that if you're using this template, if you're using a very popular hashtag, you can quickly fill up a SharePoint list if people are tweeting about it a lot. It's happened to me and several other flow fanatics that I know. All right, so the tweet is there. Now, going to our list, here we have it, the tweet title along with the user. So we have success. Let's go back to that flow. And you can see the run history when it happened, and you can see that it succeeded. All right, that was fun. Now, how about we create another flow from a template, shall we? So this time, I'm going to search for Teams, meaning Microsoft Teams, one of my other favorite Microsoft products. And what I want it to do is to post a message to Teams with a link to a SharePoint item with a message that I choose to write. So that template's right here. Post a message to Microsoft Teams for a selected item. Now let's see if it's happy with my connections. And we've got green check marks, so it is. And I'm going to use that same list that we used to gather those hashtags for the conference. So I'm going to find my site, find my list. Now I'm going to find that same site again, and that same list, and for the get item action. And now I'm going to choose my Microsoft team and channel. So I'm going to say sales team in the general channel. And I'm going to save. And so you can use this flow checker to see if you have any errors, and it'll give you some information about your errors if you do. I have no errors. So now I'm going to go back to that list. And I'm going to refresh it. And I'm going to select the item that I want to link to in Microsoft Teams message. And then you'll see there's this flow drop down, and now this is modern SharePoint. Keep that in mind. I'm going to choose the flow, post a message to Microsoft Teams. Continue. And here's where I can send the message. That's going to go with the link. And I'm going to say, check out this message about the flow conference. And now I'm going to hit run. Started. I'm going to open up Microsoft Teams. And on the left here, I have all my teams and my channels. I'm going to go to the general sales channel and see if it's worked yet. And here we go. Check out this message about the Flow conference and a link. That brings us to the item. So this is just another simple, useful thing that, some organizations might have a need for, some might not. But it's just, these are ways to get you thinking. You're connecting your data between your different Office 365 services and Twitter, which is the third-party services, and this is really just the beginning of what Flow is capable of. I'm going to go back to flow. I'm going to go here, say okay, and just show that should have run history here, then that it succeeded. Another thing that I want to show you is the connectors. So if you click here on the left, here's popular connectors, recently added connectors. There's hundreds and hundreds of connectors. So just to scroll through them really quick, it's pretty amazing. You can search for them here. And then another thing is this learning area, which is really great because it breaks it out from I'm a beginner, intermediate, expert, admin, and you can go into these different tabs and get learning resources, do video courses. There's just so much content here. So this is another great resource to have to get started in using Microsoft Flow. Another thing I want to show you is the Flow user group site. I highly recommend trying to find a local Flow user group that you can be part of or join the online community. Really, there's just so much value in meeting other people that have the same passions with you, that like working on flows, that like solving problems. It's just, you really can't compare the community and the value that it can bring. I'm going to go back to my slide. So now let's walk again through how to get started. First thing you're going to want to do is sign up for Microsoft Flow if you don't have an account already. So you can get a free account if you just want to start trying it. Also, if you have an Office 365 account, then you should have Flow available to you. So then you're going to want to review some of the Flow learning materials. There's so many awesome blogs out there by some of my friends and colleagues where they really go into detail and provide information on how to do different things with Flow, beginner to very advanced. Also, the Learning Center that I just showed you that you can access right from Flow in this Learn link. So then I really encourage you to think about your day-to-day business processes, the services and tools that you use, and think about where you can automate. Find your use case. Be a champion for Flow. Really get your feet wet and come up with a great use case for that very first one for your organization. Also, create your first flow from a template. Take a look through the templates, get ideas, and then just go ahead and create one. And even if it's just a very simple one that's going to be just for your own personal use, everyone has to start somewhere. Then you can create your first custom flow, add your trigger, add your actions, maybe add some conditions, and then last but definitely not least, to get started, you really should connect with the Flow community. There's forums online where you can ask your questions and people respond and are very generous with their time and helping people out. There's the Flow user groups on Twitter, following some of the speakers that are speaking today, John Levesque. Everybody's really excited about Flow, really passionate, and really wants to help others. So that would be my recommendation on how to get started. And if you have other ideas, please use that Flow, MSFlowConf, CONF hashtag, and put some ideas out on Twitter. I'd love to hear them. So thank you. Again, if you have any questions, tweet me. There's the hashtag right there, or feel free to email me. And thank you again for having me. You have a great day ahead of you with some awesome sessions. And let's go make your first flow. Let me know about it. I want to see some cool flows today. All right? Thanks.
Woo, man! Melissa, thank you for that amazing intro. Next up, everybody, we have Jerry Weinstock. If you don't know Jerry, you're going to know him after this. You're going to remember his name. He's like the king of dynamics and flow. But he's taking off that dynamics hat today to teach us about flow buttons. With his session, Flow Buttons, what are they and how to create one? You're going to find out exactly that after this session. Let's go ahead and let Jerry take the rest away. After you, Jerry.
Hi, I'm Jerry Weinstock. Welcome to my session on Flow Buttons. Hopefully you're here because you'd like to learn more about flow buttons. Maybe you've done some experimenting with them. Maybe you've been successful. Maybe they didn't work out quite the way that you wanted them to. Today I'm going to show you the 3 different types of flow buttons. We're going to walk through a demo of each one, try and have a minimal number of PowerPoint slides here and get right to the action as soon as we can. And then I'm going to walk you through building a selfie tweeter. If we don't have time for this for some reason, if I run out of time, you can immediately refer to our blog, and I've got a posting out there with a video to complement this. Let's begin. A little bit about me. I've been a business applications MVP since 2010. I work at CRM Innovation. We're based in Kansas City. We're 100% focused on Dynamics 365 customer engagement. We do consulting and implementation throughout the greater Kansas City metro area, and we've got a number of other clients throughout the United States. We also build ISV solutions that extend the functionality of the customer relationship management application for event management, email marketing, and one for advanced internet lead capture. You can find me out there on Twitter. You can check out our blog, especially if you're a functional consultant in the CRM space. Got a lot of good stuff out there on empowering citizen developers. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, feel free to do so, but please reference this webinar. So once I see that note in your request to connect, I can accept it right away. And if you'd like to email me, you can get to me at jerry@crminnovation.com. There's no S in innovation. It's singular, not plural. We've only had one good idea. So, flow buttons, what are they? Well, if you work in the CRM space, they're like on-demand workflows. They require some human interaction to kick them off. That's the triggering event. The triggering event is a human being tapping on something, either in the Flow app that you see here on the right-hand side of the screen. That can run on your iOS or your Android device. Or maybe it's a physical button, which I'm going to show you here a little bit later on with these little flick buttons from flick.io. Okay. They're great for doing repetitive tasks, just like workflow, so you can put a series of steps together and have it execute all of them. You can run it anytime and any place. You don't have to be in this application that you're connecting with. You just have to have either the physical button or the Flow app running on your phone. And of course, it's automated, so it's generally going to be error-proof. You can't guarantee that it's not going to fail once or twice, one in a while. You have to be conscious of the fact that it is something that could fail if your connection has lapsed to the service you're using, or if you didn't build the flow correctly. There may be some not coverage for going down the unhappy path rather than the happy path. But by and large, they're automated flows that are going to execute the business logic probably 99.999% of the time without issue. And of course, if you create a flow button that you like, and one of your buddies sees it at your company, you can share it with her. So I'm going to show you the 3 different types of buttons. One requires some user input. The other uses a physical flick.io button. And then the third one is just a tap and go. You tap on it and it runs and does a bunch of stuff. And then I'll show you how to build the selfie tweeter. Let's take a look at each of these flows before we flip over to the live demo. User input. We're going to ask for first name, last name, company, and buying influence, which is a option set or pick list. And then it's going to submit to the CRM application, actually to the Common Data Service. So you could use the same kind of format for other things besides just customer engagement. You could use it with anything that is based upon the Common Data Service, any of the apps out there that do that. In addition to that, I'm going to show you a little bit about trigger tokens. So we know our phone knows a whole bunch of stuff about us. And I've got a list of the tokens over there that the phone knows about us, that the Flow system can pick up. And I'm going to show you how it'll pick up the address, latitude and longitude. It can also time and date stamp other information and put it in there with your Flow data automatically. I'm going too far. Physical button. Okay, so we got these flick.io buttons. I'll show you in greater detail when I enlarge the little picture of me, the video of me, the front-facing webcam here as we get to that point. But it's a product that's a Bluetooth connection. You can connect about 150 feet away from the Flick.io app on your phone, or they even have these hubs that you can buy if you want to use them. The Flick app can connect to Microsoft Flow, and when you press one of these little Flick buttons, there's a GUID ID that is sent to the Flick app, which is in turn picked up by Flow, and it can be in response to any of the typical kinds of things you would expect from a mouse: single click, double click, or hold. Lastly, the three different types. We've got a tap and go, and this is a case where it's just going to execute a predetermined sequence of events. And what I'm going to show you is how you can tap on the Flow button and get all the cases that have been created in the last 24 hours out of your CRM system. Selfie tweeter here. Go to flow.microsoft.com, log in with your Office 365 credentials. Hopefully you've got a Twitter login credentials also, and we're going to ask for your tweet, allow you to attach a photo, and then post it out to Twitter. We can show you how to do this in just probably 2 or 3 minutes at the most. Okay, that's the end of the slides. Let's begin with the live stuff. Okay, I've logged into flow.microsoft.com. I'm at my home page for Flow. I click on My Flows, and it takes me to the screen where it'll show all my flows, whether they're enabled or disabled. There'll be 3 flows at the top that we're going to take a look at here today. And the first one is this create a contact. Let's dissect it. We'll go into the edit mode. So it's got the triggering action, which is the button, triggering event, and then it's got the actual action, which connects and creates a record in my CDS environment. So I'm looking for first name, last name, company, and influencer status. I had F name in there. Let me just fix that. I want to change that to first name. And what is their first name? Come over here, improve this input prompt here. Last name, please. Okay. And then I had competitor in my list, but let's take that out. So I just hit the trash can over there, and that takes it out of my options set list. Now I can expand this, create a contact, action, scroll down, and I can look at here all the fields or attributes in the Common Data System, Common Data Service here for this, my default environment. I've got contacts. This is just one of the many entity types, or if you think of them as tables, that's another way to look at them. If you're a CRM person, it's a entity type. And I've got contacts. And I can scroll down this list and I can see these placeholder values, these kind of slugs or dynamic content here. And if I move my screen over here to the right a little bit, I've got first name. Well, how did I get that? I came over here to my list and I just clicked on first name and it put it in there. Since I've already got it in there once, I don't need to do it again. Did the same thing here for last name. Easy way to search is just come over here and type last. It'll find it for you and you can hit click on it and it'll put it over there. We'll scroll down the list and we'll see the other inputs that I'm going to put into my new record. Influencer status, company. And I come down here to the bottom, all the way at the very bottom, got a lot of attributes in this entity. I've got my trigger tokens. I've created this new custom attribute field in my CDS environment. And if I look over here on my right-hand side, I can see city, country, region, date, full address, a whole number of things that my phone knows about me that I didn't prompt for. And I've got even my email, user email, longitude, and latitude, and we'll see how that shows up. I can hit save, and while that is saving, I'm going to bring my phone emulator over here to the screen. Going to switch to my contacts view, and don't have any contacts in there right now. I'm looking at a view of contacts that were created today. So I've got my phone running here. And all I do is I'm going to take my phone and I'm going to swipe down on it to make sure that I get a refresh of my button logic onto my mobile app. Tap on the little purple button, create a contact, and there are my prompts. I got Frank, I got Frank Smith, or I could type in Jones. It remembers some of what you had before. So there is some caching, beneficial caching. Type in, enter my input here for the name of the company. I could do speech to text. Tap on the microphone. Really big company. Inc. And didn't like ink. So I'm going to come back over it, go INC. And influencer status, there's my option set or pick list pop up. Frank Jones is a decision maker. Click OK. And then in the upper right hand corner of my Flow app, I've got a done button. Tap on done. It goes off and spins. And while it is spinning can be connecting and creating, it is now done. And hit the refresh button. And there's Frank Jones. So let's open Frank's record here. Take a look at the data I sent over to it. So you may be wondering why, if I'm a Dynamics 365 enthusiast, I'm not using the mobile app, and why I would have something like this running on my phone. Well, one, this is very task specific. It takes a single tap to get to this little app function, Flow button in my Flow app. So I can run it, and if I'm in a networking environment, I can be meeting somebody, grab their name, and before I forget it, I can turn around and start moving over to the next conversation after I leave that person, and then I can enter their information before I've forgotten it. And the other thing, practical issue for me personally, is that my Dynamics 365 mobile app is very often connected to our dev environment because I'm doing training or instructing somebody on something or testing, or it's connected to a customer's environment because I'm showing them how it could work for them. So we've got Frank Jones, okay. I've got the trigger tokens over here. Full address, that's my address, longitude and latitude, and then they've got my email address kind of scrunched in there. And I've got by an influence the decision maker, okay, and there we're all set to go. So that is the input button. So that's how you can create a Flow button to prompt you for inputs. Couple taps and you've got data in your CRM system. It's available to you in, let's say you could connect to Excel and OneDrive, connect to SharePoint. Whatever you want to use for your end party connection, you can use it with. So now we're going to take a look at the physical button, or the flick.io input. Initially I showed you the screen with only 3 flows on it. The other flow for the flick.io is sitting in a different environment. I've got it sitting right over here, and it's right here at the top. We'll go into the edit mode for it, and we'll take a look at it. It's a little bit more complex than the previous one. It's got some conditional logic in it. So the way this works, we'll go through it here and then I'll show you how it looks on the phone. So when a flick button is pressed, we'll expand that trigger action. We want to look at any flick button. I've got 3 of them defined here, okay? But I'm willing to take input from any flick button that's connected to the app that's running on my phone. I could just restrict it to just input from the happy button, the green one right here, or the sad one, the red one, or the yellow one. But I'm saying any, okay? And then I've got this switch case analysis here, and it says on a particular GUID, which I got out of my dynamic values, and there's a UUID, or a GUID, a unique identifier, associated with each flick button. And the Flow mobile app is going to connect to Flick, grab the event, and then grab the ID. And I've got 3 components to this switch case. Over here on the left-hand side, I've got the first GUID it's going to look for. Does it equal this long value right here? Kind of geeky. And if it does match, it's going to send a happy email to me. It says, Jerry, it's going to go to my email address. The subject is happy with the GUID of the button, and it's going to say what click type it was and the latitude and longitude of the click. Now this is not actually where the button is located. This is the longitude and latitude of the app and either it's where my phone is at that moment in time or where the flick.io hub is. Now, as a reminder, there's a limit of a distance between the button and the your phone app or the hub of 150 feet because this is a low energy Bluetooth device. So this is not something that you can send a button out with your kid and the kid's going to tap on the flick button when they arrive at their location they told you were going to, and have it connect to some flick app that's running on your phone back at your house. Now, if your son or daughter is running the app on their phone and has the flick button would connect to the phone that's in their pocket, and then Flow could listen to that and then send you the notification. Okay. So besides sending me the email, the other thing that it's going to do is it's going to create a record in my CRM system. It's going to connect to my sandbox instance. It's going to look for a custom entity called presentation feedback, and it's going to stick the GUID value in the name field. And then in a custom field I created called positive, it's going to put the number 1 in there. So I'm going to get 1 vote if I get happy feedback. In the neutral record, or the kind of indifferent record, it's going to put the value of 1 in the neutral field, and accordingly for the sad one. Now, for some reason, in my switch case analysis here, I can compress that and compress this here, and compress my third case. I'm also considering that there could be a case that wouldn't match for some reason. For example, maybe there's another button that I didn't account to that's connected to my flick device, because if you notice up here, I'm saying any flick button here because I want to listen for any of the 3 button types. If it's not one of those 3 buttons, I want to send myself an email if it fails the case switch match, and I'm going to say no match, and in the body of the email it's going to say no match also. Pretty straightforward, but I've considered both the happy path and the unhappy path here in my little flow. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to save it here, and I'm going to do 2 things here. One is I'm going to bring my phone app back over to the screen here, drag that over, get it running here, and flip to my flick app here. Okay, and now I'm going to bring my buttons up here and hold them up in front of me. And let's say these buttons are positioned at the back of a room where you're giving you're at an event, and these buttons are at the back of a room with all the rooms where presentations are going on. As people leave the room, they can tap on one of these buttons to indicate their satisfaction with your presentation, or perhaps their dissatisfaction with your presentation. So if I tap on the red button, indicate that I was sad or unhappy about it, you can see the mobile app flicker. If I'm happy, I got happy. I got another person that's happy. My phone is kind of beeping a little bit now as these emails come in. The third person was happy. So I should have 3 happy responses and 1 disappointed response. So let's go over there and take a look at my CRM system here for a moment. So if I got presentation feedback right here and do refresh, a little bit of demo look, yeah, Yahoo, I got it. So there was a session called Buttonizing Dynamics 365, and I've got 3 positives, 1 negative, and just for grins, I included the GUID of the flick device. So if I open this up, I can see what my form looks like where I'm collecting my presentation feedback. Okay, 1 positive, nothing came in the neutral or negative area. Okay, there's a name, and because I'm using my credentials to create this record, I'm the owner of it, and there's that GUID value. Go back to presentation feedback. All right, we're back to presentation feedback, showing the grid view of the 4 records. So the cool thing about this flick.io product with the physical button is you could use it for an unlimited number of different applications. It's really only limited by your imagination. You could use it for security. You could use it for notifications at a receptionist area. You could use it as notifications for check-in, check-out. One of the things that I've done with it, which is kind of fun, totally out of the business spectrum world, is I've got a flick button that I have in my car. and I've got a flow, and the way the flow is set up for that flick button is if I click on it once, it connects to Twilio and sends my wife a text message saying that I'm in the car and on my way home. If I tap on it twice, click it twice, what happens is it sends a message to her that I'm running late, but I am in transit. And if I hold down on the flick button, it sends her a text message that says, please give me a call. And that way I can communicate with her that I'm going to be where I'm supposed to be, meeting her on my way home, whatever the case is. And I don't have to pick up the phone and start trying to tweet while I'm driving. So it saved thousands of lives probably in the process. So Flows come to the rescue and made me a better and safer driver. Now let's take a look at the last of the 3 different types of button flows. This one is email me new cases. Let's go to the edit mode. We'll dissect it, then we'll run it. Manually trigger a flow. There is no inputs up here because it's just going to be tap and run. Get the past time is I want to get the set a marker here in my flow that says go back 24 hours. I could do hours, days, weeks, months, enter whatever interval time here was appropriate. But in this case, I want to get new cases that have been created in the last 24 hours. I connect to my CRM system, to my sandbox environment. I've got my entity called cases, and I'm saying, take a look at CRMI_demo created on date. That's the name of this custom field that I have. And give me everything that is greater than or equal to this format date time expression that I've created here. This is what it looks like. It uses the now time plus the last 24 hours, combines them into expression, and that's what it will return in the OData filter query. Now I can create my HTML table using the value. See the gray connection here, gray here, that's the output from the previous step. Go to advanced options and I can create my table here. These are my column headings and these are my dynamic values, the dynamic content that I'm getting from my CRM system. Oh, let me just show you here before we go further, flip over to here, my cases. These are my cases in my CRM system. They're records in a database. They could be in an Excel file in OneDrive online or coming out of SharePoint. We could be connecting here, but since I'm a Dynamics 365 person, that's what I'm demoing off of. And if I wanted to add another column here, I could come over here and go another column. And I can come over here and click in my value. And I could call it maybe the case stage, which may be an active value in my demo environment. I'm not exactly sure. We'll see what it produces. Then I've got this get profile. It's going to connect to Office 365. And since as the person that's running it, running this flow, it's going to connect to Office, grab my credentials that it's going to use in the next step. That makes this a little bit more flexible or versatile to use down the road and when I share this with other individuals, so it gets their credentials. Now I want to send the email. It's going to go to Office 365, get my mail address. Let's see what's available to me. There's mail, and that's where it came from right over here. Display name. Well, and then I could add something else here if I wanted to just go or. Let's just grab, just is kind of goofy here, but let's just grab let's just see here, given name. And then I've got my HTML formatting here, and then this little purple slug here, or dynamic content, pulls from this purple action step over here. Isn't it great the way the Flow team put that together, made it nice and color coordinated for us? So I'm going to hit save. I'm going to grab my phone app, slide it back over here, make sure it's saved for me here. Okay, it has. And I'm going to do a slide down on the phone here to make sure that the button is refreshed with this display name and given name. It's going to connect to the Flow environment and pull in the latest information. And now I'm going to tap on it and say email new cases. So while that's working, I could have other flows like this that say, hey, send me an email with all the new opportunities that have been created in the last 24 hours, or send me an email with a list of all the appointments that my sales team has created. So you can use this in a variety of different ways for, let's say, executives that don't want to or don't need to be logging into CRM or don't want to take the time to do it. You can tee it up for them and make this as easy as possible for them. So let's check that over here. And let me check my Outlook, which is running on another screen here. And let me open this up, let it render itself, and then I'll bring it over for you. So you could have an entire grouping of these buttons that you can hand out to your executive team or other managers or even CRM users. So let's drag that over here, and let's see it. Okay, so new cases, hi Jerry Weinstock or Jerry, our columns here, and then we added another column. Oh, we came back with the number 1. So this is one of the things that you need to kind of become acquainted with in Flow, is sometimes it's going to bring back a numeric value of an option set or a GUID or something like that rather than the human readable. So you may need to dig down a little bit deeper into your schema to understand what it's going to bring back and what you want to represent. And this is something probably that's pretty unique to Dynamics 365 people and not quite as relevant if you're going to connect to Excel or SharePoint or one of the other environments. Before we go on to show you the Selfie Twitter app, let me recap a couple items. I've shown you a button input requiring information for a contact record, a button that uses a physical flick I/O device, and a third one that's a tap and go. You just tap and it runs and it does its own thing. Let me see if I can show you how to do a Selfie Twitter app in under 3 minutes. Come over here to Flow, click on New, Create from Blank, Again, search for a button. That's going to be the triggering event, manually trigger a flow. I need some input, text field. If the first one is going to be what I'm going to tweet, I want another input field, and that's actually going to be a file. So we're going to look for a photo, all right? Those are my 2 steps here. In my triggering event, new step is to look for Twitter action, and I want to post a tweet. What's the text to be posted? It's going to come from my triggering event. So I've got tweet here. Remember, it pulls this value here, the prompt. And now I've got some advanced options here. There's only really 2 things you can do. The text you're going to tweet and then attach any media. So I want to come over here. That was prompted with photo. So I look for photo. You don't have to put anything after. You don't have to put JPEG or anything like that. We're off and running. So I'm going to hit save. And now I'm going to go over to my phone. And it's called button post a tweet. Bring it over. Refresh my phone. Should be a 4th button appear. There it is, post a tweet. Enter your input. Having fun with Microsoft Flow. Need a hashtag. So I'm going to put in space. Hashtag Microsoft Flow, and select an image. I could get it from the camera or my photo library. I'm going to grab it from the camera. Here's my little selfie. Smile. It's working. Click. Tap on OK. I'm done. It runs. And let's go over to my Twitter feed here. And let's go home. Tweets. And there it is. Having fun with Microsoft Flow with the hashtag. And there's my picture. That completes my presentation for today. Thank you very much. I hope you found it valuable. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, send me a tweet, subscribe to our blog. Have a great day.
And just like that, you now know how to make a flow button. You know that there are ones you can make on your phone and ones that exist in the physical world as well, real buttons. So go on, get out there, go and make some flow buttons yourself, and then tell me about them on Twitter. Here is my Twitter handle, and then here is the hashtag for the conference. Go ahead and use both those things. Let us know what things you're gonna make, okay? Next up, we have Mark Stokes coming to us from the UK, Atalo Intranet. I love this guy. And you know, we had to have at least one session that talked about Power Apps and Flow together. And Mark, he's the guy who's gonna deliver that one for us today. And yes, without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and let Mark get into his demos and show you Power Apps and Flow better together.
Hi everybody, my name is Mark Stokes from Untitled Chapter and welcome to my session. Today I'm going to spend some time showing you how to connect a Microsoft Power App to Microsoft Flow. In this example, I will create a very basic support ticket mobile application with data stored in SharePoint, and then we want to use Microsoft Flow to decide who the ticket should be assigned to. The Flow will look at how many tickets the agent already has assigned to them and assign the new ticket to the agent with the fewest number. First thing we need to do is create the SharePoint list. Okay, so let's go to our intranet page to start with and into the support center. This is where we want to manage our support. We can go and create a new list and we'll call this support tickets. Because we're a good SharePoint citizen, we won't use spaces. So we just want to add some columns now to our list. First thing we'll do is add a number column. And we'll make this our priority. We want to make this a number between 1 and 4, and we don't want any decimal places. And we'll set the default to 4 as well. Yes, it's required. Next we can create a description field, so we multiple lines of text, and we'll allow the agent to put in rich HTML. And again, it's required. Now we want to have a person that we can assign the ticket to. This is the field that we're going to fill out from the flow. And we'll add a space in. And we can add a due date. So all of our tickets should be closed within a certain SLA, so we can figure out what the due date should be. That's not required because maybe that needs to be set later. And then lastly, we want to have a close date because we want to track the date the ticket is actually closed. And just tidy up the column names. Making your list pretty is important. So what we can do is just add a couple of items in here. We just want to see the list so we've got things we can see in the Power App. So we'll just create issue 1, priority 4, assign it to me, and set a due date. We'll just add a couple more. We'll add one to Curtis. And one to Sean. So basically what we're doing here, we're loading up the list. We want to put some tickets in and we want to make sure that one person has less than others, so the flow can actually find out who to assign it to. The nice thing we're using flow is going forward we'll be able to add more complexity in. If all users have the same level of tickets, then we need to pick out who should have it. We might also want to do some complex calculations, such as if somebody has priority 1 tickets, then they have less capacity to take on priority 4 tickets. So this is where flow really comes in useful, because we can actually make it quite complex. Now that we have that in place, we can go on to create the Power App. Okay, so we go into our Power App, and what we're going to do is just create a new app from scratch. So we're going to choose a SharePoint source. Try and find it in our recent list. No, it's not there. So paste it in. And we want to choose our support tickets list. So Power Apps will go and actually create as an app out of the box. And the nice thing with this is it's going to create as a basic app where we can just have a display gallery, an edit form, and a details form. So straight away we have a fully working app. It's really, really cool. I like this that Power Apps can do that. We're just going to tidy up the gallery a bit so it just shows a little more meaningful information. So we want to show the issue title first. We then want to show the person it's assigned to. We don't want to see the claims, so we'll just change that to display name. And then we probably want to show the priority underneath. We could obviously customize this to show more details, maybe a summary of the issue, whatever else we want to see there. We can see here the detail screen, so when we click into it we get basic details. It's not very good, so we might want to update it, but we can actually go in and create a new item now as well, and we can see in the assigned to we have the ability to choose people. Remember, all this out of the box, I just created all of this app here with one click. Super easy. So if we create a new item, we just go and create a new issue 5, set the priority, give it a description, and we can choose who we want to assign it to. In this case, I'll assign it to myself. And we'll set a due date. I'll save that, and we can see straight away that we actually have 2 issue 5s. But we've created a new item from the app, and that's gone and saved it in SharePoint as well, which is fantastic. Okay, now we're ready to create the flow. We can put all kinds of magic in here. To start with, we'll keep the flow very simple just to get the connectivity working, but later on we can come back and add some more advanced features. So we'll go into our flow page and we want to create a new flow. I like to create flows from blank. I like to pick my trigger and my actions because I figure I know what I'm doing. So the first thing we want to do is choose the Power Apps option, and we'll set the trigger from Power Apps. There's no other inputs that we need to put in here. And the second thing we need to do is plan our exit. So we want to respond back to Power Apps because that's the last thing we're going to do. Essentially, receive a request from Power Apps and send something back. In this case, we're going to send back an email address. I'm just going to hard code it for now because what we're interested in to start with is the ability to just prove that it works, and then we can extend the logic in Power Apps in Flow later on. At this point, I am actually going to create a SharePoint connection. I'm going to do this because there's a small bug in Flow at the moment, which hopefully gets resolved, where if you attach your Flow to your Power App and then you go back into Flow and add a new connector, such as to SharePoint, it doesn't pick the new connection up. So you have to go back and remove the Flow from the Power App and re-add it. So I'm just going to add in the connections that I want, or I think I'm going to want straight away. I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm just going to load some items in. but at least it's there ready. It just saves me a little bit of pain later on. Don't worry though, the product group is aware of this, and I will certainly hope there'll be a fix at some point in the future. So I'm just going to type in the name of my SharePoint site that I want to load my support tickets from. The reason I'm going to load SharePoint items in here is I need to get a list of all the support tickets that are currently open, because then I can scroll through them and figure out how many tickets each agent has. I also very much recommend that you rename your actions as you go. Once you get lots of actions in and lots of apply to eaches, it can get very, very confusing as to which actions do what. So the better you name your items early on, the easier life's going to be. I also like to give them a good name as well. I like to start the name with the application that it relates to, and then give a description of what the function is. So support tickets, get next assigned to user. Now that we have our flow ready, we can go back to our Power App and associate the flow to it. So now that we've got the flow ready, we can go into Power Apps. If we go on to one of our edit screen, then we can see on the action menu we have the option there for flows. If we click flow, then lo and behold, we can automatically see the flow that we just created. And that's going to add the association to our Power App. It automatically puts in the code to run it on the onVisible. In this case, I actually do want to run it in the onVisible action, because straight away we want to find out who has the next availability. So the format we have is we have this short name support tickets -get next assigned to user. So that's the name of the flow without any spaces. .run. And then when we put .run, we have the ability to pass parameters to it. We don't have any parameters set up at the moment, so we don't need to worry about that too much. But what we need to be thinking about is when we run our flow, we need some way to actually get the result of the flow. So it's one thing to set it running. In this case, what we want to do is we're going to update a context item. We're going to call the context item, we'll call it assigned to. So that's going to return all of the return variables. So in this case, we're going to have the ability to run something called assigned to.email, because that's the property we created. So you could call that flow response or assigned to details, whatever you want to, but I'm going to call my context item assigned to. So in here I'll be able to access assigned to.email. So now when we go to our screen, you can see those little dots across the top. That means something's happening in the background, and that means our flow is actually running. What we want to do now is just make sure that the flow is actually running in the background. So if we go back into our flow, we can click back, and we can see our run history. Our run history shows that a flow ran 19 seconds ago, and look, it was successful. So we've had an input, we didn't pass any properties in, we've got some SharePoint items, we can see that they've been returned into it, and we also are returning an email object back to Power Apps. So as far as I can tell, that looks pretty good. So at this point then, we believe we've returned something from Power Apps, but we don't really have any way of seeing it. So what I'm going to do is just add a little label to my Power App. This is the easiest way for me to just check what's coming back. I like to do things with as little complexity as possible to start with, and then add complexity each time. So I'm just going to do a label for assigned to .email. Oops, just getting my fingers all confused there. So assigned to .email, so that's the property that's coming back. And now we can see straight away it's showing mark.stokes, so this is atolo.com, and lo and behold, that is the email address that our Power Apps returned. To be fair, that's really all there is to it. We've called the flow from our Power App and returned some results to it. But since we've got some time left, we can go and add some advanced features. The first thing we're going to do is send some properties to the flow so we can do some filtering if we want to. So to do this, what we're going to do is go into our flow, and we're going to add a couple of compose options in here. I like to use compose at this point. I use compose where the item's not going to change. Of course, we could use a variable if we preferred. So to make it easier to use throughout the flow, then we want to change the name straight away. So I'll just call this input1. And then I want to use an asking power apps option in dynamic variable in there. And we'll create a second one. We can call this input2. Of course, you could call this anything meaningful for your application. Another asking power apps, and you can see it automatically generates new dynamic variables for you. Suppose we can do an input3, and we could just keep doing this as long as we want, depending on what we need to pass in. Just keep saying asking power apps, and it automatically creates the required items. So that's our flow now prepared to accept our inputs. And now we can switch back to our Power App. And what we need to do is, at this point I just remove the previous reference to the flow and re-add it. I sometimes find it doesn't always update very quickly to the new options, so if I just remove it and re-add it, that can help out. And it obviously changes the invisible command, so it's got rid of what we had in there before, which is nice and helpful, thank you. And now I can put my inputs in. Unfortunately at this point there's a little bug in this connection, so because I've done this once or twice in my demo environment, it's actually retained 3 inputs called compose inputs. These are not going to be used anywhere, these are just hanging around from a previous attachment. There's a little bug in the connection which hopefully the product group will fix at some point. But I can basically go through, add in my inputs here, so input value 1, input value 2 and input value 3. So this matches what I had in my flow. And if I add these in, then these values will get passed into the flow. And I'll just recreate the update context part of it as well, just so we've got that there. Now obviously I'm just hard coding the input values here, but we could just pass these in from other properties on the Power Apps form if we wanted to. It's just string values from either typed in directly or from our form. And that's all we need to do to pass properties into Flow. Save Power Apps. And then we'll click off the screen, click on again so we can run the invisible. We see the 3 dots going, so something's happening in the background. And if we switch over to our flow and we look at the previous run, then we can go in and look at our inputs, and we can see input value 1, input value 2, and input value 3. So now we can use these input values in our flow to do all kinds of things. So in a similar vein, what we're going to do is now send multiple properties back from Flow into Power Apps. Because sometimes we may not just want to return one value, maybe we want to return a number of different options. So we've already got a text value in there for email. We're going to add another one in, and this will be a yes no field, and we'll just call it did it work. I'm putting spaces in as well in the property name. I'll just put yes. Output, we can add return an email. So there's another option here to return an email. Now to be perfectly honest, at the moment this just looks like a string that comes back to me, so I can't really distinguish the difference. Maybe someone can correct me here. And we can put in a number as well, so we can return a number back. So we have some data type in here if we want to. So we'll return a max value, let's say 5. And we do also have an option in here to return a file. I'm not going to demonstrate this here. It won't work particularly well for the setup I've got, but it's something you can look at if you want to. So if you're returning a file from a SharePoint list, you can return it into Power Apps for the user, that kind of thing. I won't be able to demonstrate here. So that's as simple as that. Save the flow. Now we can go back to our Power App. And what we want to do at this point is to add in some extra labels so we can view the results of the return values. So I'll add a new label to the canvas. Make sure we can see it. And the same way I can just call assigned to, which is our return value. And at the moment, see, we only see email at the moment, so it's not actually updated with our new return values. So what we're going to need to do is go into our action menu, click flows. We're just going to need to remove this flow reference from the screen, and we need to re-add it. Unfortunately, that automatically overwrites my onVisible again, so you might want to copy and paste this value before you do it. I'm just going to rebuild it. It's still got those compose inputs hanging around, so we'll just ignore them for now and pretend they don't exist. Put my input value 1, input value 2. One of the hardest things in life is to type when somebody's watching you. And there we go. So just build up our... Oop, that's the wrong place. And just build up our update context again so we can have our return value back into that context variable. Give it the same name so our current references work. Okay, so exactly the same as it was before. Quick save. So we just need to click off the screen again and back on again just so it can run, so we can actually get those return values. So we've got our email option, and now we can see that we've got our other properties showing up in the visual workspace. So did it work? Yes, let's just return my yes value. Put a new label on. And I have my email 2 here, so again it just looks like a string. I haven't managed to figure out what the difference is. Another label. And this time we could do assign to dot. And max value, this is our number value that's come back. So we just do our number value and it renders out just as a string in the label again. And lastly, we have our last one, which is our file. Obviously, because it's a file type, it's not going to show up here, so I'll let you work on that afterwards as a demonstration. I could probably pass it straight into my attachment option here, but it doesn't work in this example. So that's how we can get multiple values back from Flow into our Power App. So there we have it. I think we've achieved what we set out to achieve. We've shown how we can integrate Power Apps and Flow into the same application. What we did is we went out and created a SharePoint list, and that held the information of our support tickets. Then we created a Power App. We just used the most basic Power App, but it's nice to see just how easy it is to create those applications, and the fact that when you create it from a data source in the first place, Microsoft gives you the ability to just have a fully working app straight out of the box. Makes it very easy for beginners and new users to actually get something that's usable. Then we went off and created the flow. So the flow allowed us to do some processing, get some items from SharePoint, figure out who the right person should be, and send that value back. Then we extended that by going and sending multiple properties into Flow. And that's really useful because quite often the Flow needs some input to be able to make some decisions. So by sending those properties in, we can filter information, we can target different lists. There's a whole bunch of things that lets us do. That's really, really important. We've also gone and seen how we can send multiple values back. Sometimes it's not just one value, but maybe we need to send a lot of different properties. So we can really easily do a lot of computation in the Flow and send that back to the Power App to do something with. The nice thing is that it works in a very timely manner. We actually have a number of Power Apps out there for customers at the moment, and we do exactly this. For example, we have a request process, and we need to figure out if some teams have a capacity to take additional requests. Otherwise, the request isn't allowed to be made in the first place. This really cuts down a lot of the approval process. So the flow can be triggered by choosing a date. That runs in the background, checks some SharePoint list, does some counts, and sends back whether that's an approved request or not. You do have some concerns here about whether the flow will run fast enough or quick enough for the Power App to receive, and whether that affects user perception or user experience or not. In our experience, it's actually been working pretty good. We've not had any problems with flows taking a while to trigger or taking a while to process. Now, if your flows are too complex and you have a lot of apply to each items in there, then it may not be great for the user experience. So you need to be really, really careful about what you're actually doing in that flow. It's got to be back as quick as possible. So just bear that in mind when you're creating it. There are a couple of little bugs I found along the way as we're doing this. The first one, as I mentioned, if you create your flow and then you attach it to your Power App, and then you go and add some extra connectors into your flow, you can have some issues. It might not actually run those connectors, but what you can do, if you just save your flow with a different name, so use the Save As feature, delete your original flow, enable the new flow, and then connect that to Power Apps, then it'll carry on working. This is a known bug, and the product team is aware of it, but just be aware of it if you come across it. I spent a good few hours trying to figure that one out before talking to the product group directly, so be aware of that. And also, as you saw, sometimes if you want to update the return properties, you might need to remove the app reference, the flow reference from the Power App and re-add it. And just be aware again that it might actually overwrite the calls to flow that you have. So a couple of little gotchas. They're not really big. Once you know what they are, they're quite easy to work around. For me, I think it's a really powerful solution. It gives me a lot of capability that I wouldn't really want to put in my Power App, so it lets me leverage some of that out. So I think it's definitely worthwhile. So I hope this was useful. I hope you got a lot out of it. And if you have any questions, I'll be delighted to take them. Thank you very much.
Oh man, Mark Stokes delivering the 1-2 power apps and flow in that session. I love it. Next up though, we got some real world use cases. Sandro Pereira out of Portugal, a good friend of Kent who was on the team. You guys know Kent. He's here to tell us, how do they use this stuff in the real world? How useful is it? How do they build some of these solutions? Let's go ahead and jump in with Sandro and let him show you how real people are making real solutions with these tools. Let's check it out.
Hi, welcome to my session. My name is Sandro Pereira, and today we're going to talk about how we at Devscope use Microsoft Flow and Power Apps to extend some of our internal products and expedite our daily tasks of our teams and workers. A little bit about myself. I am a Microsoft Azure MVP since 2011. And my focus is about integration. I like to consider myself an integration codeless wizard. So I work a little with Beanstalk, Logic Apps, API management, all of this integration stack. I have my own personal blog. I'm a public speaker and I'm a book author. And you have there my contacts. Feel free to contact me later if you have any questions. I will not have too many slides. I will only present some of the topology of our solutions. And the first one that I want to show you is about time reports. So as we as consultants have these annoying tasks, let's call it that way, to report times in our internally systems and most of the times also in our clients' systems. So I'm traveling a lot. I'm constantly away. And one of the most difficult parts is that we at Devscope use Microsoft Dynamics CRM on premise, which is nice. It's a good system to report times. But I need to open my laptop. I need to open the browser and access to CRM, insert hours. And because I'm always traveling, I normally skip this, or I don't have internet, or I'm tired flying, or by train, or by car, and even worse, I cannot open my laptop in cars. And I normally skip these tasks, and then after 1 week or so, I spend like 1 day, 2 days just trying to remember and insert all of this stuff. So my team and I decided to create this, what in my opinion is an awesome app to report times. So again, one of our biggest challenges was our Microsoft CRM is on premise. So we had to find a way to connect to that system. Our first idea was using data gateway. But that ends up not being the best solution for our case. So we decided to expose a small subset of our dynamic APIs to a web API on Azure. Because we want to protect these and control the access, we expose that through API management. Again, our first solution was trying to put our Power Apps application connecting to that API management API. The problem with that approach is that the first time user enters the application, he needs to log on and he needs to present the credentials, but to that API they need to put the access key that normally is a GUID and a very long GUID. It's difficult to remember that and insert that using a Power App. So because of that, and because we also had to put some logic about the search and some conditions, we decide to use flows to make the bridge between the Power App and our CRM. So if we try to search from a blank string, we will not allow. If the search will return too many records, we ask for the user to enter a most valid search to reduce the number of records, and so on and so forth. We also use a SQL database. It can be another system, but in this case we use a SQL database because we're simple to store some of these data from CRM. So if you are familiar with CRM, each project or budget will have an internal GUIDs. And for us to avoid too many search on CRM, we decide to store this project that users are associated with and budget. We decide to store these product names and GUIDs on our database to be faster. Okay, let me show you how this works. And so the first thing that a user needs to do is to associate himself to certain project that we have on CRM. And by the way, this is our internal CRM. I have a lot of time reports already reported. So I go to manage project. It will show already the list of projects that have. But if I want, I can associate a new project and make a search. Let me think if I have something here like search for a project. And we have a list of projects that we have in our CRM, and I can of course select the project that I want, and I can associate the project and associate project and budgets. Okay. If I already have a project but I have other budgets, I can also go to that project and associate the new budgets. All of this information that you are seeing, we are storing the GUIDs on our database. So the nice thing that now that I did all of this, I have a list of projects, I have a list of budgets that I'm working on at the moment. And let's say if I'm driving a car from the client to my home, I normally spend like half an hour in traffic, stop it. I can go to my mobile phone if I want, or even in let's say I'm not driving a car, but I'm in an airport, or I'm walking on the street. Okay, I can go to my mobile phone because I have data there, and I can open my app. I select the project that I want to report. Let's say Superbook, and say choose the day. It was yesterday, and let's say the number of hours that I was working on the client, and I can save requests. I can do that several times, and at the end I have a list of report submission that I want to choose. I can choose to have notifications. I can select sending only one time report, or I submit all. Okay. So for you to see that if this is working, I already submit the time report, and if I go to the CRM, I may, let me check. Oh, this is not my time reports. This mouse. And you see that 29, I have Superbook there and 4 hours. Okay, this for me is awesome. So we seen the time reports application working. This is an example of what. So we have seen Power Apps time reports application working. This is a sample of a flow that is supporting the application. In this case is to create the time reports, so the last interaction. It will receive the information from Power Apps. It will initialize some variables, for example response, and if it send an email or not, and it will call our API that is exposed from API management, and then it will wait for the response, and it will check if it was success or not success, and it will inform Power Apps if it's okay or the error that happened. So it's a simple way to control the process and not to put too many logic inside our Power Apps. And what was an annoying task, it's now simple and a fast task to do. The second scenario that I want to show you is more or less related with that. So we insert time reports, but we also need to insert expenses on our CRM to control the budgets of the projects, to bill the clients for expenses, you name it. There are several situations that it can happen. Again, this is even worse, I think. So we need to go to a list of invoice and one by one insert manually on CRM. This can take a couple of hours, and it's really time consuming. So we had DevScope create an internal product called Smart Documented Expenses that allow me to upload a picture and automatically extract the data from that invoice, the date time in which it was invoiced, and special the amount. Of course, and for that I will use Smart Documented, that is our product. And of course I want also to correlate that information with my project that I was working on. So I am using the same Azure database that I use on Scenario 1 in the time reports application to correlate what is the project that this invoice will be associated with that. At the moment, these information are being stored in SharePoint, but in the future, because we are in the process of closing this application, we will insert also in CRM in our projects. So let me show you how this works. And I can now insert an invoice by using library or the camera. I will choose a camera. You see that I have my invoice being seeing my invoice on the screen. I will take a picture, and you see that I can choose from okay, this is the food, and I will associate with my project Emory, and I will submit the form. And this will be uploading to Microsoft Flow that is sending this information to Smart Document API, Expense API, and we'll insert that also in SharePoint. And on behind, we'll wait for the response in a synchronous way from Smart Document API, and we'll update once it's ready the information on the SharePoint list. So now I will click on Manage My Expenses. Bear with me, it's a little bit slow because this is also still in developer environment. So you see that it's still processing. You have to choose to view, and you see that is already processed. Let me click to see the details, and I can see the picture that is 8.85, and you see that is already say that it was on the value was extracting 8.85, so it is correct. Of course, and this is another one sample, and this was still better because it actually extract the data and also the amount to pay, and also the date time was correct extracted. Of course, I can always edit and fix any of inconsistencies that may happen. This will help you save a lot of time doing this task. And what is still more amazing is that I'm able to do that with the use limitation of Power Apps, that is screen resolution. So each time I take the photo is actually 600 pixel photo, so it's quite small photo, and still I'm able to extract information from that that type of pictures. And you see that again, all of these expenses is actually being added. You see that my name here is actually being added on a list in SharePoint. So what is behind this expensive smart augmented expensive application is these three Microsoft flows. For example, one of them is to receive the photo from the Power App, transform this data in a binary, and insert them in a SharePoint list. Okay, and update this item also. Okay, another one, for example, is also to receive that file and invoke Smart Documenter API to analyze this data, to extract metadata from the document. This will return me a GUID. I will store that, and I will call a confirmation flow. Why I'm calling this and asynchronous call this confirmation flow and response to Power App saying, hey, my Smart Document API already response is processing the file. The reason I'm calling that is in background, let's say that way, I have a flow that is waiting for the response of that Smart Documenter asynchronous way, in an asynchronous way, to update the SharePoint library once it's already processed. So my application is not waiting for a long time for everything being processed. I need to be fast. Okay, insert a picture, send it, and once it's ready, just update the SharePoint and notify me. Okay. So the third application is quite simple. So we have these certifications that we need to fulfill each year, and one of these expectations is for us to produce evidence of formation, workers' formation. So we actually have on our company a concept of CSIs, that is basically we at lunch gather it together and share knowledge between teams and friends. No, we are taking lunch and at the same time sharing some topics about technologies, projects, products, you name it. And in the old days, we were filling paper forms to have a list of attendees and to evaluate the sessions. If it's a good session, everything was fine, the equipment was fine, the topic was nice, and so on and so forth. And we are keeping these papers to produce evidence for these certifications. What we decided to do was create a SharePoint list to store of all of these evaluations, and again create a Power App that have this list of questions and for us to fulfill and send it to SharePoint. We actually decided also to put flows to control the process and put some logic there. So let me show you that application. So it's a very simple application. There is a screen. We need to respond to that event. There is instructions, and at once we accept these, we will insert the name of the speaker. We will choose what session was made, and we will insert some values about the session, and of course at the end we will submit, and this will be stored automatically in a list of SharePoint. And the last but not the least scenario is again about OCR and one of our products, again Smart Augmenter, but this is another area of Smart Augmenter, that is process evaluation forms or any type of document. So we have many systems that can that allows you to create a form, evaluation form on the web, and share with the attendees to submit these evaluation forms. But in my opinion, paper is still the best. Why? Because normally at events the internet is not really good, and if you are outside you may don't have internet connection or data. So paper is still the best options. The problem is that after the sessions we will get a lot of papers to extract information to be present and to present to the public and gather some extraction, some metadata from these evaluation forms. Luckily for me, I have our internal product called Smart Augmenter that allows me to create a template to extract these metadata information from forms and submit to a system. In this case, I generate a Microsoft flow to extract, to process this extraction, metadata extraction, and insert in the Power BI, so I can show during the event on coffee breaks in real time. So let me show you how this works. So I have here some evaluation form that I did in a recent event. Again, this was filled by attendees, and of course I don't have a scanner here to show you the whole process, but I can emulate by inserting in a folder and to be processed. So I will put some of these forms in a folder that will be processed by Smart Documenta. It will extract the metadata from the forms and it will submit to a Microsoft Flow. Been execute some recently execute. So if you see the process, I'm exposing a service that will get a key value JSON file with all the metadata from extract from the evaluation form. I will initialize some variables to be able to store this information, and then I will try to extract from the body all the information that is present in the JSON file. So I'll try to check what is the speaker, and I will also try to extract this is another speaker. If I go through here, for example, this is who I am. Try to find who is the attendee, if the session meets the expectation, and enjoy the session, and so on and so forth. At the end of this, I will try to make an average of these evaluations. As you can see, these will be like having all of these evaluations and divide by 4, and I have an average, and I will then insert to a Power BI, and the end result will be more or less something like this. Okay, and this can be present during the coffee breaks on the screen, and it is dynamic, it's live, and it's funny. Okay, so thanks, and I hope you enjoyed the session. Again, feel free to contact me if you have any questions.